Back in October, looks like my feed is gone, huh? There it is. Back in October, I shared a podcast on money. It was part of the Life series. In that session, I talked about some key things, and primarily these three things. I'm going to recap those tonight so you don't lose them. And then I'm going to build on those a little bit more. You good for that? We're going to get real practical tonight about how your money and you need to grow. You need to grow in a way that the outside world sees it, that they start looking inside and say, how does that happen? And our response will be Jesus. And they will say, how do I get some of that action? That's called an evangelism of jealousy. Yeah, man. You think the world wants power? Mm-hmm. You think they're looking for fakes? No way, man. They're looking for the real thing, and we've got the real thing. Let's learn how to carry. Last time in the podcast, I talked about net worth, bread and seed, and living, giving, saving, or LGS. These were some ideas that we could build around as basic understanding. In fact, these are secret ways that nobody teaches. You see, net worth is a simple picture. Those of you who know, it's the balance sheet. But what's interesting is all the information that flows to us is on a different sheet. It's on the income statement. Nobody's talking about this thing called the balance sheet, so I introduced that idea because that's how the wealthy grow and measure what they're doing. They understand that assets minus debt equals a number called net worth. That net worth number, assets minus debt equals the number, represents your altitude off the ground. If a person has $1 million in assets, whatever they could be, cash, land, who cares? If they had $1 million in assets and they owed $1 million in debts, what's their net worth? Zero. But they can look around and see all these things around them, can't they? They can see all their bicycles and cars and motorcycles and all their fancy stuff is all around them because those are the assets. So you can't tell your altitude or the amount that you're carrying by the assets. You have to measure by the net worth. Net worth is like an airplane. It measures the altitude off of the ground. Are you with me? A lot of people have lots of assets and lots of debt. What that looks like is a little tiny net worth. Let's call it zero. It's like you're a pilot of an airplane and you have loaded all your passengers on. That's your family and friends and people you care about, yourself. And you started that big engine and you're handing out peanuts and you're driving around, you're taxiing around. You're driving over here and talking on the microphone and you're driving over here. You're driving all around in this tarmac in this airport. But then you're going to have to drive again because you have no altitude. You get that? You're not going anywhere. Pretty soon people are like, yeah, let me off this airplane. Because they're like, dude, I want to go somewhere. So you've got to measure net worth, and that's something that is a secret of the wealthy. And Christian brothers and sisters, let's talk about building it. $10,000 in assets and no debt gives you how much altitude? 10,000 feet. You can get over some stuff. Don't try to get over top of Mount Shasta with that. So it depends on what you're trying to accomplish or where you're going. We're going to talk about that in a moment, but right now we're just refreshing. And if you want to hear the whole message, go back to that podcast that I showed you earlier. Last time we talked about bread and seed. Bread and seed is something we are familiar with in the body of Christ. Bread and seed talks about things that you have to eat and things that you have to plant.